We speak. Our words. We listen.
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 Good evening, everyone. This is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 8th of June 2025. And this is where we go through the Facebook posts that have been shared on the Autistic Radio Facebook page. So, our first post is from PANDA, and are a charity organisation, and it stands for Promoting Autism Neurodiversity Awareness. And what they've shared is about ableism. Ableism isn't just about individual attitudes. It's everywhere, woven into our systems, culture and daily lives. This powerful image which they have shared breaks it down. Ableism is ingrained in our systems, embedded in society, tangled in language, and ever present. It's normalised in culture, hidden in plain sight, and a daily struggle for so many. Ableism creates barriers to equality, is shaped by ignorance, constantly reinforced, deeply rooted, and is a form of systematic oppression. Let's recognise these truths, challenge ableist thinking, call out ableist language, and work towards a more inclusive world for everyone. What's people's thoughts on that?
I think it's exactly right, exactly spot on. I couldn't describe it better myself.
I think I live in a kind of nether world, really. A kind of half ableist world myself. I think an awful lot of the attitudes that I still find myself with could be described as ableist, and I haven't yet had them explained to me. It's as culture changes and as awareness changes of various things, keeping up with everything has not been possible for me, even as somebody who kind of goes into conventional media and reads the newspaper. So a lot of the constructs and a lot of the clumsinesses about language can often simply be clumsinesses and unfortunate ingrained muscle memory of words. And I find how we educate one person as the culture develops from a different generation to the other, that's that interface that needs to be kinder and softer and more thorough in its way of explaining. As the generations move on and they explain what is ableist and what these concepts are to the older generations, they have to kind of adapt their message to the possibilities of understanding of the people who've gone before. I think some of the strategies around banning language and stuff, it turns out to be confusing for most people.
I know we spoke about this before, but could somebody remind me what ableism actually means? Is it people, is it insulting, or is it a system to keep you down? I mean, I spoke about it before, and I remember having good conversations about it before, but I'm just trying to remember what ableism actually means.
It's something that shows a prejudice against somebody, some other group in society. So racism is against people of a certain race. You can have isms against any kind of group. Ableism is against a disability group, people who have either a physical or a mental disability. If you say something that is old-fashioned and really offensive language from slurs, those kind of ableist slurs are like racist slurs. So there's an N word for people of colour or black people, and then there's a R word for people with mental differences. So some words are just, you do not say them because they have their own single letter, and there's an R word that goes here. So anything like that, any insult along those lines. But more broadly, it's prejudice in systems that make it difficult for people to have equality in those systems. Things that deter them from being able to use a service or get a job.
Well, in a sense, it might be a promotion of the normative use of the word able, which is like, that is the standard, that's the accepted norm. And anything else is seen as worth a prejudicial perspective, which is why sometimes I think I've noted this in myself, that I have internalised ableism. You know what I mean? Because I grew up conditioned by an ableist society, which sees able as normal and right and correct. And you judge everything according to those standards. So it affects your thinking, and so that's what I see as internalised ableism, which has the advantage of like making me now able to see it in others who are using it negatively.
And to follow on from what Ray's saying, eloquent as that is, if you have a sense of able and unable or inability, then somebody is deciding what is ability and what is inability. So a set of standards are being made up, a criteria is being made up, and some people are being included within something and some people are being excluded. And that is a social construct. That's not real. What is ability and what isn't ability, in general, is not real. It is a decided sense of what a human being should be. And it goes into eugenics eventually.
One of my exes used to have a favoured way of using a word that she had to use at times, but she turned it on its head, and it was the word invalid. And she used to put this little score in between in and valid, and sort of say invalid. And then she projected it into herself and said, sometimes I feel invalid. Which gave her a kind of, because she was a social worker, a kind of empathy for those who were deemed to be invalid. It was just a strange way of turning the phrase around.
Well, that's what's great about language in a way. Obviously, it depends on people's perspectives and what way they take certain words. But you can actually play with words as well. If it's a certain word that just it sounds outdated, or it's always been a sort of rotten word, but it's been used and was normalised. But you can actually take it and play with it in a way, or turn it around to make it more educational or inclusive, or just to raise the actual issue of the word in the first place.
I think there's a song, it says the first word in hello is hell, and the last word in lonesome is me.
The next post is from CAN Network Ltd. And a non-profit organisation, CAN Network is Australia's largest autistic-led organisation. 50% of our team are autistic. We deliver group mentoring in schools and via online settings. We share our insights through talks and consultancy. And what they've shared is an event coming up in Brisbane, East Australia. And it's called Dinosaur and Reptile Enthusiasts, a 5-day online programme for autistic youth who enjoy all things dinosaurs and reptiles. From T-Rex to geckos, let's chat about your top dinosaurs, reptile facts, and everything cold-blooded and prehistoric. It's on from July the 7th to July the 11th, 6 p.m. to 7:10 p.m. Australia Eastern Standard Time, and the cost is $321 Australian dollars, and it's online. Connect from the comfort from your home. And what I've shared this for is something a bit more light-hearted, and a lot of these kind of hobby sort of events that people can connect together.
Well, initially that's some price, but I don't know the currency conversion from Australian dollars to our money. But then again, for a guy who doesn't get out a lot, prices shock me when I eventually do get out. I can see the attraction in reptiles and dinosaurs totally. Not that I identify with those things. I got a bit excited thinking, oh, maybe I'll see an octopus here, or some other cephalopod or something like that. But no, it's the cold-blooded land beasts and historical ancestors of our planet. But yeah, these things are groovy when you get into these situations, and any kind of stretching of the mind to become aware of the greater aspects of our existence is just brilliant.
Yeah, it's about £145.
I'm guessing there's something claimable about this. It says NDIS claimable, so it's possibly one of those things where it's a service that's seen as appropriate by the community, maybe. It certainly does seem to go into one of the major interests that autistic people have, history and dinosaurs. So it could be almost as though your insurance is going to pay for this. I don't know, but different health services, there seems to be something about a health service claiming thing there.
The next post is from the Autistic Teacher. As a public figure, autistic and proud, sharing insight and understanding to help the autistic community based in the UK. And what they've shared is a presentation about de-escalation strategies. As an autistic person, we can experience the world in all its detail and extremes, and it can feel overwhelming. This can lead to a meltdown or shutdown. De-escalation techniques can help us to avoid crisis point. Stay calm. Don't shout to be heard. We need your calm. Avoid making demands. Now is not the time to ask us to do something, even if you think it will help. Respect personal space. Don't get in our face or too close. It's more to process. Decrease sensory stimulation. Dim the lights, turn the radio off, give space. Avoid the word no. No can be very triggering for some people. Validate feelings. We need to feel understood. Answer questions kindly. We might need reassurance, clarification, or connection. Be aware of your body language. We might feel more sensitive or threatened right now. Taking a walk. A quiet walk or change of scenery might help. Different face. Don't be offended. It isn't personal. Sometimes a change of face can help. Snacks and drinks. For many reasons, snacks and drinks can actually help. This is by no means an exhaustive list of de-escalation strategies, but they might help to support you or your autistic person.
I think this copyrighted piece of material is very good. It's nice, clear design, nice typography, no messing about with fancy fonts, clear against the background, big enough to read. And everything that I heard through there was a very sensible set of timed thoughts and progression to de-escalate the situation. So I'm very pro that. Now, obviously, I'm not going to ask people to print it out and stick it on their wall because that would be breaking somebody's copyright. But maybe in some way, buying this as a PDF from the Autistic Teacher and having it around the work study of a professional office makes sense to me. One of the things that we're going to be doing in the fall of this year, the autumn, is to be present at a de-escalation, harm reduction, restraint reduction conference as Autistic Radio, and we're likely to be taking recordings from people who've had very negative experiences of restraint in different circumstances here in the UK, whether that be in prisons or in police cells or in the mental health field or the actual just medical field. So everything we can do to de-escalate situations and stop them getting into those brutal situations that we see so often is something to be applauded.
Can I ask what might be causing these situations in these environments? I take it this is a schooling situation, perhaps. Maybe it's being general, but I think Autistic Teacher, I'm assuming that it's an educational environment. You would think that maybe there'd be some preparations for individuals who have potential escalation for there to be preparations for that. I suppose this is the preparations, given that not everybody's maybe singing from the same hymn sheet in any environment.
Yeah, Ray, I think you answered it yourself at the end there. This is the new wave of making various professions aware of these kind of issues. They won't have had it in their original training.
The next post is from My Journey with Autism, which is a community page. Bunate Nana Ya Onahawa Kafua is a photo model. She's a 22-year-old and has autism. She has made tremendous progress in family support, and the link is clicksafricafoundation.org and Mary Amore. And what the post says is, never ignore the signs your body gives you. I had an appointment at the Spanish Embassy on Wednesday evening. That morning I didn't feel quite right. Something felt off. So I decided to rest and make sure I got enough sleep to be prepared for my evening appointment. I left home around 4 p.m, but even then, something still didn't sit well with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. So I called a friend of mine who's a nurse, and she told me to stop by the hospital and get myself checked first. I'm really glad I listened, because I've just been discharged from the hospital. Still not out of the woods yet, but better. Please listen to your body, rest when you need to. Your health is not something to take lightly.
Problem here these days is if you want to get a doctor's appointment, sometimes you're going to wait a long time, and I've had minor health issues and I haven't bothered, because by the time I get to see a doctor, I'm pretty certain that I'm going to feel better.
We have a phone number here that you can call out of hours, and sometimes there's an out of hours at nearby hospitals, but usually it's best to make the phone call first, have someone call you back and ask you about your situation. Very often they will escalate it themselves if you've given them any kind of reason to do so, like, because the initial questions are, to do with your health. It's like they're quite serious questions. But usually if you're just wanting advice or stuff, they'll often say just call your own GP the next day. But if you are really concerned, you can get an appointment scheduled, usually that evening. Although I haven't done it for a while now, but it was always helpful. They were always asking me to drive myself up to one of the hospitals and be seen.
I have no access to many services because a lot of services are phone-only based.
The main reason I shared it was I spoke about previous posts and topics regarding how autistic people, the sensation of pain, and how it's hard to predict with some people if some autistic people, either themselves or people around them like family, etc., are aware of how serious a condition can be, and sometimes it can be left with tragic consequences depending what it is. But it also reminded that no matter in the world, there's this sort of encouragement of just getting on with things. See, if you feel kind of ill, you're saying it to yourself or you're encouraged by others, you have to be really seriously ill, like you can barely move and you're in extreme pain before you seek help, because it seems in society that seeking help for a genuine thing is a sign of weakness. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I think that may affect a lot of autistic people and people in general.
I was looking at My Journey to Autism page, and that took me to a link. The www address is for clicksafricafoundation.org. So I looked through all of the menus there, and I haven't seen anything there that says it's ABA based at all. I've seen two of the people there saying that they are occupational therapists, and the language in the website is relatively progressive. It's a social impact organisation actually in Africa, where there's limited resources being put into autism. So from my point of view, looking at this from this point here, it looks like a bona fide organisation in a country that has very little money being put into this if somebody wanted to follow their vision and go through there.
The next post is from Embrace Autism, who are a mental health service, science website and diagnostics centre. Research-based information and empowerment by autistics for autistics. Embrace your advantages. And what they're talking about in this post is heightened pitch detection. Some autistics show superiority in memorising picture-pitch associations, detecting pitch changes in melodies and even absolute pitch. Common sensory strength. Anybody ever heard of this?
Well, I'm very interested in music and music theory, but I've never heard of this, no. I know people do have perfect pitch. It is a talent that some people have, an innate ability. Well, no, it's neurodivergent, artistic based, I'm not sure. I'm just a wee bit concerned about the word superiority here, but maybe that's just nitpicking. I think it might mean pattern detection. I think that's what's being hinted at here. This ability amongst autistic people to work with patterns.
When it says heightened pitch, right away it just sounds like a very sensitive, painful thing in terms of the sensitivity of sound, which I'm too familiar with. And that's the reason why I kind of wear earphones when I'm travelling in public transport, etc. So to see that sort of language used as a positive, it's good. I'm quite intrigued what it actually is trying to explain.
Yeah, we often respond to like the title of this from a negative point of view, don't we? It's like we've got, oh yeah, another problem that autistic people may suffer. But it turns out to be validation of some kind of ability.
Harry, perfect pitch is when somebody has the ability to discriminate between two different notes. And often, people with perfect pitch, you could say to them, give me this note, and they would be able to reproduce that note by singing it to you. So it's that kind of sophistication between their hearing and their ability to be able to look at a piece of music and break it into all of the different notes and have them accurately, whereas most people would be in some kind of sliding scale about where a note was, and they'd be off the pitch, rather as opposed to perfect pitch, exactly on the interval that a note would be.
Almost like being tuned in.
Yeah, the word attuned is quite a good way of thinking of it. Attuned to music.
Earlier today I was thinking about synesthesia because it is referred to a lot by a lot of people, and a lot of people in the neurodivergent community talk about synesthesia too, this idea of transferring from one sense to another. Because I'd been thinking that all the senses generally are kind of mixed up and are processed by the brain. So they all help you in one way or another with different mediums. So the ability to like know tone and pitch and sound and to reproduce it is just a kind of modicum of accuracy that is quite impressive.
The next post is from Autistic Not Weird. Community page, articles and insight about autism from Chris Bonello, an autistic author, advocate, speaker and former teachers. All articles Chris Bonello, copyright 2015 to 2025. And he shared with someone else. It's a follower share request. Another research survey, this one specifically for older autistic people. So it's a researcher opportunity to help us understand the experiences of older autistic adults. Researchers at the University of Manchester are inviting autistic individuals aged 55 and over to participate in an important research project. Your insights will help us understand what it's like to live in a world not designed for older autistic adults. This research has received ethical approval from the University of Manchester Research Ethics Committee. Research study opportunity. Researchers at the University of Manchester seek autistic volunteers over the age of 55 to take part in research into their experience of navigating a world not designed for older adults. And it's asking, are you autistic, age 55 or over, and are you able to understand written and or spoken information given in English? This study involves taking part in a one-to-one interview about your experiences and challenges that you have faced as an older autistic adult and how you have adapted and coped. You can take part online over Microsoft Teams by speaking or using the chat function, by telephone or in person at the University of Manchester. Interviews will last approximately 1 hour. And the contact is Rebecca Stapleton. The email is stipulated in the post.
In what sense do people think the world is not designed for older autistic adults?
I think I just feel that after I got my diagnosis, I don't feel that there was any sort of help for me, really. I go to 2 social groups at the moment, but I just felt that I got this diagnosis and I struggle in certain aspects of what someone would call an ordinary normal life. And I just struggle through. I just don't know where to turn.
When I got my diagnosis in 2014, there was virtually no support. What I got was via charity, and I was funded directly by my father. When I lost my father, what little support I had was taken away. They just wanted to give me skills that I already had and work skills at a time when I was traumatised with losing both parents in the home, and so there isn't any help. The groups I actually go to are actually, none of them are autistic specific.
The situation here in Scotland, there have been some pilot studies to put some money into creating post-diagnostic support for people in their adult years, particularly, it seems, our age group. And we've taken part in this for a number of years, looking at this. First of all, we were supposedly in a co-production that fell through with a conventional autism professional organisation. We missed out on the opportunity to apply in our own right to a first round of funding, but we followed a very successful autistically led group, professional group, who paved the way with an excellent model that was then taken as a model to follow to the Parliament building in Scotland in a joint presentation with Scottish Autism here. They're unable to get the next round of funding for the autistic group because the goalpost got changed on the next round of funding, and they wouldn't have met one of the criteria, which this criteria caught out a couple of professional autistic people group who just took the money as their own income and did very little of benefit. So it cut them out, but it also cut out the beacon of hope, the one that was getting all the attention because of the way they structured how the finances would have to work. Our organisation is in the absolute position to be able to fit all of those criteria, and I made sure that our application fitted exactly what was asked for. Plus, we are an entirely autistic organisation with a lot of experience in providing aftercare for people after their diagnosis or realisation. What we're going to likely see is that they have to find another reason to stop us as an autistic organisation that could do something very cheaply and very effectively and very long-term for people. They're going to try and find a way of excluding us from dabbling in their market because that's where they make their bread and butter. End of political speech.
The next post is from Autistic Revolution, who are a community organisation and have a magazine based on employment, creating new diversion, affirming places, creativity, education, well-being. And what they've shared is about applied behavioural therapy. And they say that applied behavioural therapy runs through every single school in the country, through teacher training, through clinical assessments, through educational psychologists, through positive behavioural therapy, through interventions, through reward points, through reward days, through the NHS, through the health visitor training, through speech and therapy, through speech and language training, through play therapy, etc. So yes, there will be, of course, a massive children's mental health crisis because of it. Whilst people continue to describe autistic people as having autism, living with autism, suffering from autism, has communication problems, has behaviour problems, has interaction problems, autistic people will continue to see ourselves in this way. Our preferences may not align with the idea of naivety. Our goal is to be ourselves. That's it. Any other outcomes or target that don't align with autistic culture is simply conversion therapy. It's 2025 people. And the country they're referring to is the UK.
I think this is a very important post. And it's a very important line in the sand between old school thinking of the medical model around autism and autism being a neurotype and identity and a wide range of different people who can be grouped in all kinds of ways within their own subsets, but basically the neurodivergent and the neurotypical. And we're guessing maybe it's a 90%, 10% split. That's what the health service here in the UK puts it down as. And where the chasm is really about identity, changing identity. Who has the right to control somebody's behaviour? Who has the right to judge somebody's behaviour as unacceptable? Who has the right to decide on what's normative in communication? What is and isn't rude? And the post very clearly points out that the ideas that are the framework of behaviorism and behaviorist science and all of those things that are associated with them, the ideas that frame that and have framed that do come from a background of attempting to alter autistic people. It's incredibly important that the groups that are getting together now, the Facebook groups and the educational research groups, I go to some very small, discreet places quietly here at Autistic Radio and represent us in places where people are really making some very interesting change-making thoughts in different spheres, in different international places. And having a real push for people to understand why ABA, as it has been put out there, is unacceptable to us is really important. My attitude is that I have a possibility of changing things by speaking to the ABA community direct, but other people will do it through this form, and this form is really important. It's how the neurodiversity movement got to where it is now, and has afforded me to have the understanding of my own identity. It's informed me. So this is always going to be necessary, the fight back against the conversion therapy of ABA.
Remind me, Autistic Revolution was that magazine, wasn't it, that the woman was going to step back from running?
Yeah, that was kind of a bit of a drama, really. They've picked up the pieces, they've realised they can do it anyway as a passion project, They were trying to do it as a kind of business. Now it's all voluntary, and they're doing something fantastic. They're putting out a positive message, and they're also campaigning.
The final post is from Neurodivergent Lou, who's a blogger, finding a place in a neurotypical world. And they've shared another presentation, and it's called Autistic Social Hangover, Needing Days to Recover from Socialising. Autistic people sometimes struggle with complete and utter exhaustion from socialising, even after socialising for just a short period of time, or even if we really enjoy spending time with the person or group of people. An autistic person may experience this completely exhausted feeling for hours, days, or weeks at a time. This is sometimes called post-socialisation fatigue or autistic social hangover. So why might autistic people get social hangover? Well, needing to process lots of input in the environment, difficulties with regulating emotions during and after social situations. Autistic people may also experience overwhelming repetitive thoughts which can contribute to a social hangover. Autistic people may have a detailed-oriented processing system in comparison to non-autistic people who often process the bigger picture before then processing the detail. For autistic people, this can become overwhelming. Autistic people may struggle with communicating with non-autistic people. For an example, a non-autistic person may make eye contact as a way to build connections. However, for an autistic person, this could be uncomfortable or even painful. Autistic people may mask out autistic traits and mimic non-autistic people in order to avoid judgment and to build relationships. For example, this can use up lots of energy. Sometimes an autistic person may not realise that they are experiencing an autistic social hangover and instead pass it off as other things. We may, for example, assume that we are just being lazy when we struggle with exhaustion for days after socialising. Equally, we may feel that everyone experiences the same exhausted feeling as us, but assume that we are just bad at coping with it. We may feel like we should try harder. The autistic social hangover experience is often misunderstood by others too. When someone enters into a state of being unable to move or communicate, for example, this is sometimes mistaken as someone being distant, strange, lazy, or perhaps even rude. The reason I found interest in it is I can identify with this a lot. Just at the weekend, I was doing a lot of things, a lot of good things, meeting with nice people, a bit of work, and going to my brother's house to watch a football match. And it was all good, it was all great. But I was looking forward to getting home into my own space and this sort of feel of the need to recover from doing the socialising. And even though both instances was quite easy, very enjoyable, there wasn't much stress involved, I still felt a lot of energy was used just to be in company of others. And I'm talking about family, I'm talking about people that I've worked with for a number of years now, and I'm comfortable being around them. When we talk about things, it's not just about the thing we're there for, we talk about just kind of general chit-chat, small talk, I suppose you could call it. But it still took time to recover. And I used that time yesterday, and probably a lot of today as well, actually, from recovering from that. And it did feel like a sort of hangover in a way. Even though the words sound quite strong, it does make sense.
Yeah, that hangover is a good way of describing it for me, because it is that sense that you've had too much and it's a bit bleary. It's a bit, the next day, the idea of having communication after too much communication in one day can be a real, oh God, I don't want the hair of the dog. I don't want to see that again. Why did I ever drink whiskey on top of red wine again? It is that same sort of feeling the next day after too much social interaction. And also the thing is that on a big day, coming down from the social interaction might disturb your sleep as well. You might not be able to get to sleep because your brain's still buzzing at all the different things, all the going through whether or not you got away with whatever you got away with, or whether you were understood or misunderstood, or even discussing what went wrong in socializing. Loads of people are going to be able to relate to this.
I just always felt like I was going faster and faster. And I mean, I did really well, but I was drinking a lot to help me get through it. And eventually, I sometimes say it's like one of these potter wheel things. The lump of clay's there, and it becomes like a jug or something, and then the clay just wobbles and falls over. And that was inevitable. And I mean, it took me years to get to the point where I reached severe burnout, but I got there in the end.
Sometimes even socialising with autistic people can be a wee bit fatiguing, although often it's quite invigorating because you explore things not normally explored in your general socialising. I think there's levels of socialising as well. I mean, to go all in is just asking for it. I like to take it on my own terms.
I think socializing with other autistic people can be the most intense because you are so in tune with each other. I mean, I've got experiences recently when myself, my wife, my daughter, her girlfriend, all of people who are neurodivergent, and we are riffing off each other, and everything is going so fast, and it's 4-way across, and you're getting everything that's going on. So it's like at the speed of light, and it's more exhausting than any other because it's using up your battery faster. But it's like flying. It's riffing. It's when everybody in the conversation is joyously riffing on it. No one's down.
That's why I like the 2-hour limit on mobile phone calls. And that's usually when I say to my friend, let's just breathe. Let's remember to breathe. And maybe we'll get up and stretch our legs a wee bit and do a little bit of exercise while we're raving here.
Well, thanks very much, everyone. That's us come to the end of discussion again. Another great night, another plenty of discussion, ups and downs, and many different things to talk about, which was fantastic. So, and thanks for everyone who creates these posts and posts them on Facebook for us to share with those interesting topics that we just talked about. So this is Harry's Facebook for Sunday, the 8th of June, 2025, which is part of the Spectrum Voices conversation, which is on every Sunday, 5:55 PM to 7:30 PM UK time, on Facebook Live, YouTube and LinkedIn.
Such an eclectic mix, such a lot of thoughts taken away there. At this point, I take a few minutes to look at what Autistic Association enables Autistic Radio to do. I'm concentrating on a couple of edits that I did recently. One of the real pleasures of the project as an autistic person is to have the access that making a podcast or making a broadcast affords to a professional or to somebody who has a reputation out there, somebody who other people's time. It's really difficult to grab some people's time. And if you can do that, as we managed to with Jackie Edry, then it's a glorious thing. I was able to do that because I was traveling. I was in a different time zone. I was in India. She was in, or lives in, Israel. So we could match up the times. Just this week, I was going through that edit. And when you make a recording with somebody, you spend a lot of time giving pause and really listening to the words of the other person. But then when you edit again, that's a second time. And what I heard again in the edit as I was finalizing it this week was a really coherent, cohesive position that Jackie puts out, really well expressed. So if there's one of our programs that you listen to in the next week up, if there's one of the podcasts, then let me recommend that one to you. It'll go out in the Advocate series. Something else I did this week was an edit to do with the two different interventions that seem to be coming against each other, DIR floor time and the more progressive versions of ABA that are developing here in the United Kingdom. So we have two very learned people, PhDs and doctor in front of their names and book titles, and the establishment of charities and the establishment of schools even. That edit, Dr. Virginia Bovell speaking with Dr. Colette Ryan, is one of a series that they've done together. And for me, it was very light touch editing, because the way they're expressing themselves and the way that they almost work off each other and describe their differences but also describe their similarities seems to be happening very naturally with just the minimum touch of editing. So I'm looking forward to people getting the opportunity to hear that this week as well. Progression. It's all progression. All of these different threads, all of these different projects that people are working with. I know Nicola's planning a recording with some of the people here on transitions, life transitions, and how we navigate and negotiate those. So it's a very eclectic mix here on Autistic Radio. You're going to hear things that you are surprised by, things that you don't agree with, and things that you come to agree with. It's not always going to be the most comfortable listen, because we open our doors to everybody to put their ideas forward. Does that sound like a reasonable description of where we are, guys, here at Autistic Radio?
Yep, absolutely. Progressing forward.
Autistic Radio is about us, it's for us, and it's from us. Autistic Radio is about you, it's for you, and it can be from you. We have every single Sunday drop-in, 4:44 PM every Sunday. That's not live, that's us getting together, us talking, community. Every Sunday, Harry leads a 5:55 PM, a discussion around the Facebook page that he creates. Involve yourself by suggesting what we should talk about next. Share it with Harry. And then the bigger picture. Advocate. Use us. Speak to the world. Your project, your idea, your enthusiasm. We have a whole range of different programs that will fit what you want. As far as listening goes, there's some challenging stuff out there. Because amongst the identity, the entertainment, and the community, we also make serious programs with autism professionals, challenging their ideas and bringing what you say in other spaces to them. A lot of those are difficult listens, but it's a holistic gathering. It comes all together. Autistic Radio is very varied. We need a favour. To encourage us, we need you to share us. When you share us, you give autistic people power. When you share us, you make us impossible to ignore. When you repost on LinkedIn and Facebook and anywhere else, you're advocating for everybody in the autistic community. So pick the things that you're happy with and get them out there. So thank you from all of us.